Well, good afternoon or good evening or good morning, whenever you might be watching this video. For those that were expecting to tune in and watch us live at 3 p.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday, as you might have been able to guess, that did not happen as planned, right? At the last moment, our broadcasting equipment kind of went kaplooey. And so we are recording this and playing it back later. So everybody's watching it on demand this time, Shane.
Is that a technical term, kaplooey?
Kaplooey, I think that is a technical term. So, if it isn't a real technical term, it should be.
Yeah.
I mean, they did come up with bug and stuff like that. Yeah. So, I mean, kaplooey, why not? It sounds like a problem, just so even saying it.
Hopefully you're able to watch this later.
Yes, hopefully your equipment works just great. We were able to get this uploaded and you're able to watch the entirety of this video with no kaplooeys.
So we're just gonna do just like real life television, pretend like it's live, and then actually show it later.
So hopefully our technical whiz, Mike Dalton, can get a previously recorded thing on the bottom of the screen.
So we're recording this live,
yes.
Live before a studio audience.
We are live, there is an audience, right. But we're sorry we couldn't be with you live. I suppose we should move on. Well, Shane, it's great to be back in these chairs. It's been a couple weeks since the last time. And so we're kind of doing a double header live QA today.
Yeah, I'm excited.
We're tackling 2 weeks worth of messaging all around this two-part series of Together in Purpose. And I'm really excited to ask you a bunch of questions about it.
Let's do it.
So excited, I almost just got choked up there for a moment. I might need some water, but we'll see. Thank you.
It's emotional.
We need tissues too, folks. But one thing, we've got such meaty questions to tackle. What we're going to do is we're going to skip the usual sermon recap. If you missed the sermons from either of the past 2 weeks, you could catch them on Facebook, our website at weag.org, or go to the YouTube channel, which is WEAG TV, that's WEAG TV, and you can watch them there. Definitely worthwhile sermons to catch. View them if you have not viewed those already. But for those of you that did see the sermons, you were here in attendance or watched online, we're going to delve into some really awesome questions for you right now, Shane.
Okay.
Because in week number 1 of Together in Purpose, you talked, your sermon title was While We Wait. Mm-hmm. And you talked about how the Israelites had to either wait or move with God depending on how a pillar of cloud by day or a pillar of fire by night moved. Yeah. And sometimes either one of those pillars might stick around for a couple days or they might be in a spot for a year, but when that pillar moved, they had to be ready to go, right? Okay. So to me, it seems like, okay, so easy to know when to move because you see this giant pillar of cloud and we don't have that nowadays. People would probably freak out. But is waiting and moving as God desires more difficult now without the presence of these pillars? Or is it not so much about the methods God used and more have to do with us?
First, I would say no.
Okay.
It's not more difficult.
Okay.
I think they had it much more difficult, in my opinion. I mean, if you think about it, following a cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night sounds really practical. Mm-hmm. Like it's a no-brainer, so easy. And it is in that sense that nobody can miss it. But not so practical when you hear the description like we read in Numbers that said whether the cloud stayed there for a day, a month, or a year, they remained in camp and they would not set out until the cloud moved. I can't even imagine that. That's the road trip from Hades. I mean, that's a horrific thought that you have no idea how long you're going to be there. Do you set up? Do you pull everything out? Do you eat? Do you feed the kids? Yeah. Do you not? I mean, are we going to be here 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days?
5 years? Who knows?
Yeah,
5
we
months? Don't know.
And we don't know. So that would, I can't even imagine. People say, I wish it was like the days of old when we heard the voice of God. It's like, no, you don't. Because you would hate. But I think it's no less hard then or today on the issue of control.
Okay.
Think about it. What drives you crazy on a road trip? It drives you crazy when you're not in control. Mm-hmm. And when your dad turns around and just says, we'll get there when we get there, that doesn't help. That doesn't help. I don't know. Can you give me some time frame? We want to know that we're in control, and especially when it comes to our own lives, that really gets amplified. Mm-hmm. I want to know that I'm in control. There are people who are, we call them control freaks, who can't stand not being in control. They always have to drive. They always have to be the one directing. They always have to, and they don't put themselves in any situation. You all know it's certainly not you. We're definitely not talking about you. Definitely not. It's a friend of yours. But we hate not being in control.
Yeah.
And that's true then. It's true today. But we have so many more things today that they didn't have. For instance, we have the complete and total inspired Word of God, a collection of 66 books called the Bible, the Holy Scriptures, that we have today that is God's guide in life and really a compass. I talk to my kids about all the time that you have to have a compass in life, and if you're just wandering aimlessly, you don't have a compass. So the Bible, what we believe to be the Word of God, is exactly that. It's a compass. It's something to guide us through life. They didn't have that. They just had the pillar.
Yeah.
I think it's also easier because of the fact that we have the Holy Spirit. Those of you who are followers of Jesus, if you're not a follower of Jesus and you don't believe in God, already I've lost you. But those of you who believe in this, there's this idea that we have God living inside us who can speak. And you say, well, what does God sound like? Well, he sounds a lot like you. I mean, not you as in Jim Washok, but me as in Shane, and you as in Jim, and anyone. You fill in your in the blank, because it's that internal voice that says, hey, I feel like I should help that person. Hey, I feel like I should do this. Something inside me is telling me, guiding me, almost directing me. That is today's version of the pillar of cloud by day and the fire by night. It's much more than that. There are many more things than that.
Yeah.
But you know,
But it's much more internal.
Yeah.
No,
but
not
now
so
it's
external.
It's certainly more internal. The external are certainly those exist as well today.
Yeah.
But harder, to answer your question, I think it was harder then. I think we have a whole lot more available to us today.
Sure.
That reveal God's guidance, you know.
Yeah, and we've certainly had some physical directors here at WEAG this year, which is what inspired a lot of your 2 weeks of sermon.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, the tornado that hit the gym in September dislodged a number of AC units that caused the floor to get flooded and ripped down to the cement, forced everybody that was attending our gym service into the sanctuary.
That's right. In fact, somebody asked me if we could post the security footage.
Oh, we should do
of that. I don't know if we can do that, Nikki, or not, but maybe we could post the security footage or see if Mike has it. If we can, that would be really cool, like even right now in this discussion. But go ahead, yeah. So we had a literal pillar of cloud that turned into a tornado.
Yes.
That led to ripping off some of the roof of our gym, that took 5 air conditioning units, that poured water into our floor, that destroyed our floor and destroyed some of our roof, that we are now been displaced. We used to have a worship service in our gym, and now we no longer have use of our gym, so we came together physically. We had a physical sign. That was a circumstance that led us, and we said, oh, we have to respond.
Yeah. And in addition to the pillar of cloud and tree particles and AC units that was flinging about that day.
Flying throughout the air.
It was only about 3 weeks later when Hurricane number 2 came through. We then had a pillar of darkness, so to speak, as a power outage, ironically forced us out of the sanctuary and now into the gym altogether.
Into a gym with no working technology. None of our sound system worked, and of course electric didn't work, but even when we used generators, we had to run a different sound system because we had that had all been damaged in the flood. So it was chaos. But it was definitely, there's nothing you can do about it. And it's an act of God. Even insurance companies refer to it as an act of God. It's totally outside of this world. We have no control of it. We didn't produce it. We have to respond and say, hey, God is in this somehow. It's somewhere. So what do we do?
Yeah. And amazingly, apart from those 2 weather events, 2 other weather events forced us to use the gym in new ways this year we've never had before.
Yeah.
KOS concert was moved inside. And then in October, the fall festival was moved inside.
Yeah.
And not weather related, but still very new to WEAG was SquadCon, the gamers conference that was held into the
Yeah,
dome.
yeah.
So I'm curious, hopefully I'm representing a lot of other WEAGers and asking you, the lead pastor, what has been perhaps exciting, what have you found exciting in these new ways in which our venue space has been used this year?
Well, one of the things that I found really exciting, Jim, is our response. Each one of the things you're mentioning, none of them were the plan to be in the gym.
Yeah.
The KOS event was planned to be up on the field, up what we call our upper lot or our grassy knoll. Some of us WEAGers refer to it.
Yeah.
You know, it was meant to be up in this field, and then weather forced us inside. You mentioned the other examples. Those are all examples. Our fall festival, the weather again forcing us inside. We absolutely should have canceled. We have between 2,000 and 3,000 people who come on our property.
Yeah.
How do we fit them even in the hallways and in our gymnasium? It's impossible, it sounds like. The other time you mentioned the service, we had close to 1,000 people. Well, I shouldn't even say this on live, on video.
Fire code.
There might have been some fire code issues, but anyway, in a room that does not hold that many. So what I've loved about it is I've loved our response. One of the questions that came in, Jim, you remember you showed me was, what is the modern day pillar of cloud and pillar of fire?
Yeah.
How does God lead us? Well, one of those are our external circumstances. That when God puts a roadblock in your way, you had nothing to do with the roadblock. It could be a job that you thought you had. I remember in moving to California, I uprooted my whole family. I sold tons of things. I fit it all into a truck and moved 3,000 miles across the country. I thought I had a job. I showed up the first day of the job, and they had restructured the entire, as a new vice president of sales, and I was meeting the person, and he starts in the conversation like it's an interview. I'm like, this is a weird way to get to know me.
Yeah.
Like we're interviewing. I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. I think there's been a misunderstanding. I got hired months ago. This is my first day, right? He's like, well, we're actually going through that. We're interviewing people. I'm like, wait, hold on. I thought I had a job.
That's eye-opening, yeah.
And now I'm in an interview. I just moved my whole family across the country, you know? And sure enough, by the end of that day, I didn't have a job.
Wow.
He actually brought in his whole team. He was only doing this as a courtesy to the original owner. And he brought in his own team from another company, and anyone who was there or who was coming in was out.
Yeah.
And in a moment, something I had no plan and no control over was put in my way. That obstacle, my response to that is everything. And I've loved, and I've been so proud of West End Assembly of God. They have responded. If you're a part of WEAG, I'm so proud of the way you all responded. You moved into new space. You came and made do with whatever we had. We had Fall Festival through the hallways. We did whatever we could do. I know it's not possible to have every event or continue. Sometimes you just have to cancel. But there's, you know, how you respond is everything. And sometimes today's pillar of cloud or fire or pillar of fire by night are circumstances. The job you thought you were going to have, the promotion you were counting on, the raise that didn't happen, the demotion that happens, or the pay decrease that happens. What we thought was going to happen doesn't happen. That is a detour in life. And how you respond to that is everything. And will you follow the principles that you know? What do you do when something is in the way of your direction? Well, you make sure that your direction is not just based on where you were going in your career or where you were going in your plans or where you were going in your goals. Make your goals about the principles of the kingdom of heaven lived in your life. Jesus said it this way in Matthew 6:33, seek first the kingdom of heaven and his righteousness, and then all these things, all your concerns, in the context of that passage, Jesus is saying, where do you sleep, how do you make your money, how are you going to eat, how are you going to provide for yourselves. All of those things will be taken care of if, I'm not saying you'll get rich, I'm saying those needs will be met if you prioritize and make sure that the most important direction in your life are the principles lived out by the kingdom of heaven. Then God can put any circumstance, any roadblock in front of you, and you know that God is still directing you because he's still working in you. That's important.
Yeah. Shane, you challenged us in that sermon to ensure that God works in us before he works with us, right?
Yeah.
Am I quoting that correctly? Okay.
Well, I was using kind of the metaphor of the fact, not the metaphor, but literally we physically had moved.
Yeah.
And people were asking the question, when are you going to move back to the gym? You know, and the answer, well, I mean, of course, the logical answer is, well, as soon as the gym floor is fixed, well, you can't start the gym floor until the insurance approves the roof being fixed. And right now we're in a waiting game right now with our insurance company. So when the roof gets fixed and the floor will get fixed, and then eventually, someday, there'll be a date, a finish date. And we probably won't hit it, but then like weeks later, you will finally hit it, right? We'll finally have a gym.
Yeah.
So is that the date we should move back? And my response was, this is what we believe God is saying to us as leaders at WEAG, that we need to wait on God moving in us before he moves us physically. Before he physically moves us in a direction, we need God to work in us in our lives. So we want to make sure that we get everything that he has for us during this season of waiting. And when we move back to the gym will not be determined by a roof being finished or a floor being finished.
Sure.
It will be determined because God moved in us. He did the work he wanted to do while we're here together. We're currently meeting in our worship space right here in the sanctuary.
Yeah.
And so when that God does all that work, we'll know to move back, but we'll move back maybe with different purpose, maybe with different meaning. Maybe God will do something different in the direction of our church even, and move us back in it for different reasons.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're open to it. But we want the most important move not to be the one that moves us back to a gym or back to a physical space, but the spiritual move being the priority.
Are you seeing already God at work in us during this period of waiting? And how is that manifesting itself?
Absolutely.
No doubt you're getting some feedback from folks too that are.
I've heard from so many of you already. Thank you for the many emails I've received over the last few weeks. Just in the last 2 weeks that we've been in the series Together in Purpose, I've watched how God's purpose is not only speaking to people in their lives while they wait in their life. I've heard for people waiting to be pregnant, waiting to be married, waiting for a new job, waiting for a new circumstance to happen in their lives. And God has been speaking to them using our situation here in church to speak to them individually in their unique situation. But not just that. What's been so cool is like God's used this new environment of worship that we've had in having this worship center. Our sanctuary has become like a worship center, we're starting to call it internally here, because something new is happening.
Yeah. You can feel it.
Yeah,
you can really feel it. You can sense it.
And beyond the music, we fused the music together. What was in our gym service was a very band-driven worship style, very modern worship style. And then it's very traditional now. You could go to almost every church you walk into is doing that kind of a style. And then our sanctuary service was a orchestra and choir driven. We've merged those two worlds together. So it's kind of like modern worship meets gospel choir. And that's been amazing.
Yeah.
But beyond the fusion of worship music and styles has been this fusion of hearts. You know, we used to have, oh, you go to the gym, you go to the sanctuary. Now it's like, no, I just go to WEAG.
Right.
And that has really been the beautiful move, too, of Together in Purpose. And I've heard from many of you in your emails to me how God has been working in you and almost renewing your calling or your purpose of being here at this church. And in fact, I've even heard a story or two of people coming back who were away and they've heard what's happening. It's like, wow, I feel like this is a season where I'm coming back.
That's cool.
And that might define you as well. Come on home, you know. But when you get home, you ever come home and it's like, wow, this is all new. You guys rearranged everything. It's like, that's what we want.
Yeah.
We want God to be doing some new things in us.
Yeah, already new, just being in here myself, you can feel just an energy.
Yeah.
And no doubt some folks are wondering, okay, you take these two services, you combine them into fixed seating environment. Surely we're going to bust the seams at some point.
Yeah.
What happens then?
Yeah, that's a great question. We're already, the sanctuary seats, what is it,
1,400, somewhere around there, yeah.
Or
Yeah,
something.
1388,
We're just under
yeah.
1,400. We know that because of Glorious Christmas Nights.
Yeah.
It's a season. That's our set right now behind us. Is Glorious Christmas Nights, our Christmas production. About almost 25,000 people come to. We have 18 shows, and when they're sold out, we know how many they fit.
Yeah.
Well, we have this beautiful sanctuary space that seats about 1,400 people, and we are nearing that certain Sundays.
Yeah.
Already. So when we hit that number of adults, of course we have youth and kids meeting and other people happening in the building, our Latino worship service as well in our fellowship hall. But just in this room, we know just what you said is a reality.
Sure.
What we want to make sure of, when we duplicate services or we add additional services, that it isn't just assumed that, well, then just go back to the gym and go back to the old model. That might happen. That might be the best course of action. But we want to be open to the fact that whatever God creates new, maybe he wants to duplicate that new thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we might be adding services, but we might be adding them with some new things that we've learned.
Okay.
And at a very minimum, I've said this to folks who worshiped with us mainly in our gym service who are now displaced. At a minimum, when we come together during this season, that we want to come together with purpose. And one of the purpose that we come together with is this: God, change us, do something new, so that if we were to go apart and maybe go to a 9 and 11 or a 8:30 and a whatever, or a 9 something and 11 something, when we do go into multiple services, that what we're multiplying is something new. That God did something new here in our church, and we multiply that, or at least the values and principles get multiplied. And so we're waiting on God to do new things,
Yeah.
and we're coming together and we're expecting him to do them. And then we know that as we continue to grow, that we're going to have to multiply our services and then eventually multiply locations. And that's an issue too. But you better be sure of what you're multiplying. We want the work that God did in us during this season to be multiplied.
Yeah. Now, in my 24 years of attending here, the church has physically gone through a number of changes. Just
Sure.
even the gym being built on, this whole stage looks drastically different on a Sunday than it did back in 1994. But one thing that certainly has changed a lot for everybody that's attending on Sunday is the worship. And so this past Sunday, part 2 of Together in Purpose, you talked about how we are to worship together and what worship really is and what it is not. And I get the sense from the feedback you received, people in the moment got that and they understood that. But my question is, the challenge for me, and I'm sure for a lot of people, is how do we then remember what worship is and is not in the days, weeks, months ahead, especially as new people come in and join the community and they're coming in with their preferred styles of service and so forth. How do we keep this going? What you talked about Sunday, how do we make it live on?
I hope that we can learn some new ways of making worship more than a style. We talk about worship mainly in the sense of music or a service that you go to, a worship service. And we want to make sure that worship is not a style, it's a life. It's a lifestyle, so to speak. And that happens when you are worshiping the rest of the days of the week, and Sunday then becomes a celebration of what God has done in you all week long. And that is a beautiful expression of worship when you come together. That makes it less about style and more about life. When I worship throughout the week and then I come together. So one of the ways we can do that is make sure that you take a step of growth in your life and don't wait for Sunday to worship. Don't go to worship. Walk in worship so that when you walk into worship, you're not needing that to happen so desperately, because that's what happens.
Yeah.
Style becomes so critical to those of us who've been not in worship throughout the week. So we so much look forward to it that we are disappointed when it's not the style we hoped for. You know,
Sure.
I use the illustration like, oh, man, do you ever just need a week where you're just like, oh, I just really need the worship to be good this week? What does that say?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
The rest of the weeks it's horrible.
And it's good for you, but is it good
No,
for somebody
right.
else and good for that person?
Your
Yeah.
good is someone else's bad, and your bad is someone else's good. But what we mean by that is we individualize worship. You say, this is what I need. I need worship to be this for me this week. When we worship in our life and we walk in worship, I can talk about some specific ways we can do that. But when we walk in worship throughout the week, then we show up on Sunday and we celebrate what God has done in us all week. Now style becomes less important. I'm not disappointed. I don't walk in and like, oh no, great, it's Youth Sunday. It's like, no,
Yeah.
awesome, it's Youth Sunday, or it's, kids are up there doing it. It's like, oh, how can you, it's kids are safe because no one ever feels bad about the kids, except we watch our attendance drop every single time it is one of those Sundays, or we know that people are like, never mind. But we want you to be worshiping through the week so style becomes less of an issue.
Yeah.
But we understand that style is still important. Don't get me wrong. I mean, environment is important. The question is who is that important for?
Sure. Yeah.
And it absolutely is important. For those who are far from God or are living distant from God, environment is everything, because that gives me an opportunity. We say it here at WEAG all the time. We want our worship services to be an environment that helps you experience God and the transformation in your lives that only He can do.
So worship then needs to be a Monday through Saturday activity
that's
as well.
right.
It's happening every day. Beauty is you can make it whatever you want then, right?
That's right. You can put those headphones on and YouTube any style you want.
If you're
You can bang your head
headbanger
to
worshiper,
worship. You can sit
bluegrass
in quiet,
worship.
just piano. Whatever
you want.
really draws you in. Have those beautiful moments all week long. Have your playlist full of them. Have your podcast full of them. Say, oh, why? Oh man, Shane's boring. I don't want to listen. It's like, oh, I get it. Me either. I don't even like listening to my own sermons. But I listen to great preachers all week long.
Yeah.
So I don't have to have it. Now, should you, we want you as a member of this church, if you're a part of our family, we want you to come and celebrate with us, and we don't want you to ever miss. Even when you are missing physically, that's why we live stream. That's why we put it out in so many ways. You can podcast us as well. You can podcast and listen to. We have YouTube content that we put out all the time.
Yeah.
We make available to all of our people that come into our church Right Now Media, where you can get anything and everything available at your fingertips. So worship using all of these tools all week long, and then Sunday won't be so wrapped up in which style, which song. Was it too loud? Was it too soft? Was everything just right for me? Now suddenly that gets not as important, and you want it to be right for people coming in the door, but you're good because you've been walking in worship, not just walking into worship.
Yeah. As communications director, I appreciate you mentioning the availability of tools on social media and so forth. I mean, church can easily be a 7-day-a-week activity for us.
Yeah.
It's really almost should be impossible to miss church at this point.
Now, I hate to put you on the spot, but
Yeah.
I noticed this. I think you actually ran the live service, the worship service, again later Sunday evening.
We did, yes.
Me and
Yeah,
about
it
5
was-
other people were watching.
It was an unannounced test,
and
something
you
we're looking to do.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I totally lucked out and just happened upon it. I was like, oh, cool, look at this. And there were some people commenting, and we were chatting.
Yeah.
And again, it was only a few of us on at one time. But that's so awesome that you're doing that.
Yeah, yeah.
It's really cool. And so are you going to be doing more of that?
Absolutely, that is certainly the game plan. So for those of you that are only able to join us online, but perhaps miss out on a Sunday morning, you'll be able to catch it at other times. We're going to be experimenting to figure out exactly what days of the week and times of the day work best.
Yeah.
But yeah, when the stats came in, it said there were viewers. I'm like, how'd that happen? I didn't tell anyone about this. This was just a test to make sure it worked right and so forth. And so it was great that it worked. But yes, with the new series that starts next week, we're looking to have the rebroadcast and figure out when that works well for people online, because we know a lot of people that don't find you boring, Shane, at all, are not geographically close enough to even come on site and want to hear what you have to say.
That's so awesome.
It is awesome.
I'm so glad you're
Beauty of
joining
technology.
us, and keep doing that.
Yep.
And don't just join us. There's so many great resources out there. They can be worshiping all week long, and let your style become your life rather than it becoming about which style is better. And man, all of that is about us, and so not the worship that God desires for us. The kind of, he calls it our true and proper worship, is actually an internal process, renewing your mind. That is your true and proper worship. Not being conformed to anything the way systems and the world does everything, but actually be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That's something that God does a work in you, not based on all of the trappings and surroundings around you.
Yeah. Shane, for the sake of time and for our viewers, I'm going to cut out a couple questions, but one thing I think that's really important that certainly some people are wondering, like, okay, I almost bought into what you're saying, Shane, but if I'm in church service and a song is playing that just really isn't getting me, what do I do? What's my response?
That's such a great question. Thank you for asking that. I remember that seeing that question that came in. Such a great question, whoever asked that, because I think that's just a reality. There's certain songs I love more than other songs. There's this one song, I was like, oh man, I love this one song. And whenever it comes on, I'm like, oh, this is it. You know, it's like, stop, everybody stop. This is my song. And there's others like, I don't know. Here's my suggestion. This is what's so great about the pillar of cloud and fire that was of old, but today we have not just the Holy Scriptures, but we have the Holy Spirit. And we can pray at any time, any place, anywhere. God can also speak to you anytime, any place, anywhere. And he can do so in a worship song that you hate. Believe it or not. It could be a worship song you're like, oh, I can't stand that. I don't like that song. Hey, you're human, okay? So there's going to be music you don't like. So take a moment and pray. I talked about confession. That's the kind of true worship that happens in those moments. Like, God, I'm just going to tell you, that is so distracting to me right now. Can you just let me just have a moment with you right now while this song, maybe listen to the words or read we put the words on the screen. Every content of every song that we pick is God honoring and glorifying. We're very, very selective about that. And we want vertical worship. In other words, a lot of the words to many of our worship songs are actually words that you could say to God. And so I would encourage you to do that. Pray.
Just pray the lyrics.
Pray the lyrics.
Literally pray the lyrics.
Just read them, pray them as your own prayer. If that doesn't work for you, I don't like the lyrics at all. I don't like the way it says that. Okay, cool. The entire Bible is full of great prayers that you could read. Open your Bible, have it ready for the book of Psalms, and read Psalm 73, read Psalm 100, read Psalm 101, read the different songs. If you don't like our songs, there's an entire book of the Bible called songs or psalms, and they are essentially written songs from people who are inspired by God to bring these great, great lyrics and prayers. They're really prayers. We hope our songs will be that, but if they're not, take a moment and read through some of the songs in Scripture. Make that be your prayer. Maybe take some time and just sit down right there in your seat where you're at and begin to pray. Begin to pray for the worship singers, that they would get on tune, or that, I'm just kidding. Yeah. If it's whatever's distracting you, don't pray against the distraction, because really the distraction is inside us.
Yeah.
What we're distracted with is what we need. And I'm so often distracted by my own needs that sometimes I just need to come and confess that to God. Begin with confession. David prayed it this way: search me, O God, search me. That wasn't about a worship style. Don't search the band, search the leadership, search the lighting team.
Yeah.
It's search me, O God. See if there is anything in me that's come between us that would distract my worship to you. And so if we make it about this moment, this holy moment with God, no matter what song's playing, no matter what sermon's being preached, you can have a moment with God.
Thanks for that. I'm sure that hopefully everybody will find that to be truly helpful.
I hope so.
For those that struggle with that at a point during a future service and so forth. I want to hone in just a little bit in our closing minutes on this together in purpose.
Yeah.
Because I get the sense that is very important to WEAG's identity going forward. We're going to be celebrating the 50th birthday next March.
Yeah.
Truly amazing. Why is together important? Why is together in purpose so important for WEAG, that it's to be something that WEAG should be known for throughout our community and beyond? And I want to ask you, make it two-part again for the sake of time. How should WEAGers utilize that phrase, together in purpose, as an intro to describing the WEAG community to other folks that are interested, whether it be at work, school, wherever it might be?
Yeah, great question.
So two-part question there for you.
Well, the first part, I would say that together in purpose became so important to us as a church because of the literal season we're in. We literally and physically had to come together.
Yeah.
But we didn't want to come together out of reaction, or just out of reaction and response. We wanted to come together with purpose. We wanted to come together in purpose, to be in purpose together. And so literally that defines the season of where we are at as a church.
Yeah.
So I would invite everyone into that season with us, because I got to tell you, it's the most beautiful thing that has happened for our church in a while, and it's been really, really beautiful to watch how God is bringing us together in purpose. And I think what that means for us going forward is the same answer to what I would say to your second part of your question.
Okay.
Which is, how can I invite people into this? How can I share this with other people? You can walk into any organization and just be a group of people together. You're together for some purpose. It could be at a restaurant, but you're together to eat. But interestingly enough, you don't eat all the same thing. You all eat differently and individually. It's more about what you need. And it's really not a corporate purpose at all. It's very individualized. You can go and be a part of any club, the Rotary Club, business clubs, and because you're in business together, you get together, you have similar interests or similar industry that you may share, but you're so individualized and so unique that you have to make application to just your specific life. And I would say that the church is beyond just a collection of unique people with their own needs. A church is a collection of people who have God's purpose in mind, not their own. Yeah. So when we come together, we should look differently than the rest of the world.
Indeed, yeah.
We should look like a group of people who are called with a mission, not just the fact that we want to find a good church service. There's a mission that calls us, and I would say this to you who are wondering, what am I inviting people into about Together in Purpose? Here's what you're inviting them into. You're not inviting them into just mission or just church. You're inviting them into a movement. This is a movement of God that you're inviting, and we are a people of God that are being moved by God into the world with great purpose together. That's what makes us set apart and so different than any business, any organization, any club, any corporate gathering in the world, that we aren't just people who are together with individual missions. We have a corporate mission given to us by God Himself, and that makes us a movement. So I would ask you to invite people to the movement of God here at West End Assembly of God. And at WEAG, we want to be together in purpose and look different than everything else that you would ever be a part of.
Yeah.
And that makes it so much about the movement of God rather than the move of people or what we can do. It's not about entertaining you or putting on great shows or putting on great programs that hopefully make you happy. We have a greater mission than that. And that's the move of God in our lives, and we want to invite you to something that is a purpose so far beyond anything you could ever come up with or imagine yourself. And that is to join God himself at work, not just here in Richmond, Virginia, but around the world. And I hope you'll join us.
Yeah, and I love the intro that sets up for WEAGers too. I mean, to be able to invite someone you know to a place where they could be together in purpose with others. Yeah. I mean, we all seek community and we all seek significance. Yeah. And I think that's just so awesome.
We say it this way, Jim, you heard me say it a million times, right? We desire for every single person to know God, to find family, discover purpose, and make a difference. Knowing God, that's so far beyond any purpose you could ever come up with. God desires to know you, to find family. He wants you to be free from whatever definition that conjures up in your mind of what family can be defined in our lives or in our life or in culture. He wants you to be free to experience family the way he originally intended. And then he frees you to be able to discover your purpose that God designed you for. Not that the world shaped you for or that you were set up for, so to speak, but that God actually designed for you. And when you find that, you can make a difference. And that's why we were put on this earth, to be a part of the move of God, to make a difference in the world. And we hope you'll come and join us.
And I believe we're going to be having a sense of this theme of Together in Purpose drifting into the new series Enrich starting Sunday, right?
Yeah, starting a brand new series, Enrich, and it's this idea of what are the things that enrich us, and there is, of course, that play on words of being rich, and we want to be rich with happiness, rich with money, rich with all kinds of things. But what is it that really makes us rich? And we're going to discover what God's design is for you, how he desired for you to be enriched in every aspect of your life, including your time, your money, your relationships. We're going to be talking about what that looks like in our life in every aspect of your family or your unique person and who you are, who God created you to be, how you can move. God will meet you during this series, wherever you're at, and enrich your life, and we want you to come and be a part of that.
Absolutely. So don't miss that. That starts this coming Sunday, the first Sunday in December. Depending on when you might be watching this video on demand. May have already happened if you're watching this after December. But for those that are able to join us, 10 a.m. Sundays in December 2018 for Enrich, you won't want to miss it. It's going to be truly awesome, and you'll see how we grow even further together in purpose through that as well. I want to invite you, since this was pre-recorded, if you have questions that have come to your mind as you've watched this discussion, please use the comments area to go ahead and ask those questions, or you can email this guy directly.
Absolutely.
His email address is shane@weag.org. That's WEAG.org, and I'll be happy to respond to you that way as well. Or you can call or text the church. So every way to communicate us is available to you online. Just go to the website and you can find it, and we'll be sure to get an answer back to you. So Shane, thank you very much. We'll look forward to the start of Enrich next Sunday.
Absolutely. See you then.
All right. Have a great day.